Oh, nice. All right, cool. Afraid the ground was too hard. All right, so straw mat install. It's a pretty straightforward process, but there is a right way and a wrong way to do it based on what they tell you to do from the manufacturer. It's kind of what I'm going off of. So along the backside, you're going to want to install a minimum of 3 staples on an 8-foot section. And then on a 16-foot, you're going to be installing twice that many, so 6. So figure every 4 feet, 8-foot section, you're going to be installing 3. And then a 16, you're going to install 6. That's just to make sure your ends are all good. And along the outside, you're going to be doing the same amount. So every 4 to 5 feet along the edges, you're going to be doing a staple. So if you take your backside, I mean, it's staple 6 nice, but if you're using it, you want to make sure that it's pushing all the way down. It actually leaves a little bit of room underneath so that this is allowed to move and flex so that it doesn't just pull through. If you're doing it by hand, which oftentimes I've found to be just as efficient, you just go through and step it down. And just make sure you're not leaving bent staples in the ground so that people aren't catching them with their mowers and they don't pop up and fling through somebody's window. That'd be a bad move. So 3 staples along the backside, and then for overlap, what you're looking for is 6 inches minimum, just so that you don't get anything coming up. So when you lay your roll down, what I always like to do is just roll one roll, stapling along one edge, and then your edge that you're doing one next to, you just leave that open, and then you roll your next roll out, and then you staple over that. So it's a pretty straightforward process, but then how you get the end, well, I guess along the middle, what do you do for the middle, right? So you're going along the roll, and these little junk pieces at the end are always difficult because you gotta finagle the ends, but it is easier when you have 2 people working it. But what you do along the middle is you do 1 every 8 foot, just down the middle, just to make sure it's nice and low. Another reason we staple it so much is so that any grass that's already growing underneath it doesn't just lift it up right away. You want that grass to grow through, because if this mat comes up with the grass growing, it's not really doing anything after that point. It's just going to get chopped up by the mowers, and then it's not lasting as long as it could, because this stuff is designed to be biodegradable. It's broken down by sunlight. So the plastic netting, if a client asks you, is this allowed to stay in the grass? Yeah, totally. About, depending on how much sun it gets, it's about half a year before it breaks down. But even if it doesn't get totally broken down, it assimilates into your lawn and it will break down over time. So they have that guarantee from the manufacturer. It's not an issue. If there's a client that's highly sensitive towards plastics, even biodegradable ones, just let the salesperson know that. Something the client should have seen on the estimate, but if they didn't see it, we can pivot. In that sense, you'd probably want to use something like pen mulch or bale straw. Bale straw has a binding agent in it. See, that one just bent over because it hit a rock. Bale straw has a binding agent in it, at least the stuff that we get in bags. If you get ones that are strung together, that's just straight straw, and it doesn't do much for weather, runoff, things like that. What else?
Where should we be using like straw matting versus pen mulch?
Excellent question. We were experimenting with a couple different. Yeah. Where should we be using straw mat versus pen mulch? We were experimenting with different applications in different areas. So that staple's done. And pen mulch is great for along edges of stuff. So it's for small areas that don't have a lot of erosion. If you're doing a whole new area, even if it's a slight slope, just install straw matting down. I've experienced where clients have an area that is pen mulched and straw matted. Straw matting promotes better growth regardless of application, sunny, shady, water requirements. It does a better job, and it also holds the seed in place, because if you have a job that's not very sloped, you could leave and then a rainstorm happens the next night, and then all the seeds down at the bottom of this slight slope. So that's something that we need to keep in mind, even if it's. Go ahead.
When you're installing on a slope, you want to make sure you have it overlap over the next roll down. The water shedding off, goes over top.
I'll repeat the question just so they hear it. So On a slope, you're going to want to make sure that your top piece is shingled over your bottom piece so that it doesn't just funnel right down underneath that and wash it all out from underneath your straw. And also on slopes, you're going to want to use more staples as the situation permits. So I said 3 along the backside and along the sides, and then 1 every third staple along the middle. But you're going to want more as the situation allows. So if you're doing a 45, just make sure there's no areas that the straw wants to come up. And I mentioned the overlap of 6 inches minimum. And then for tensioning, how tight you want this. You want it tight enough so that the wind's not going to blow it around, but you don't want it too tight so that it's pulling out your staples. Allow it to flex a little bit. So honestly, like a good tension just for visual is the center right here, like that. It has some stretch to it. Just let it lie where it naturally lies. If you're worried about the straw not being too thick in an area, it should be fine. But if you have a really bad roll, you can always install pen mulch underneath it just to make sure that it has adequate coverage and proper germination. Because this straw, it does act as a fertilizer. As it decomposes, the natural elements and minerals in the straw will promote better growth of the grass. So pretty straightforward topic. I don't want to milk it too much.
When do you spread seed before or after?
Oh, you spread seed before. So the process that we did with Jeff from Advanced Turf, there's another video on that. You put the seed down, you stir it in, and then you put down your straw matting on top of that. So, any other questions? Like Dave said, if you want that overlap for shingling, but if you start at the bottom, work your way up, then you automatically have that shingling. So that's something to think about too.
If you're on a hill and you have some weird thing where you need to start at the top and work your way down, I just flip my flap as I go.
So flip your flap if you can't work from the bottom up. Shoot your shot, flip your flap. What else? Anything else? No? Cool. That's it.